Hello and welcome to On the Kerbs Pub Chat. I'm your host, Thiemo Albers-Daly, and in this episode we'll be catching up on all of the motorsport action from across the world from the last month and a bit as we delve into what stood out to us, what didn't, and probably just a bit of everything else as per usual. Joining me to do this are none other than my accomplished partners in crime, motorsport journalist and newly appointed F1 Academy co-commentator for Bean Sports, Öykü, Ceylan, and motorsport pundit Jacob Phillips. How are you both?
Good. Quite excited to be back at the pub with you guys, as always.
As always, Timo, you know me, it doesn't take much to get me down the pub. So, raring to go. But I did promise last time I would have a beer in my hand. I do not tonight, so sorry to let you down.
Tea time.
Third time's a charm for next. Yeah, I knew you were going to have tea, but to be fair to you, well, no, I say this to be fair to you. It's late there, but that would be even more cause for a drink. Especially as I was thinking, we've got stuff we can commiserate in this episode. We've got stuff we can celebrate, and then you get promoted. I think, well, everyone will have a drink, surely. And no, she's got tea, and he doesn't even have a damn thing. What's all this about, you
School
two?
night. That's what I'm running with.
I was just afraid if I started drinking, I might just start crying while we were talking about Ferrari.
That's
Oh,
very
we just
true.
weren't going to talk about Ferrari. We'll just leave it that way.
Oh, okay.
I think everyone will understand. Um, Shall we start with Formula One then? So we're there. We've had the first two rounds of the year, Australia and China. We've had a sprint race. We've had the whole Liam Lawson situation, and Eddie Jordan passed away. Where do we want to start? Because it is a lot.
I think we start by celebrating the life of Eddie Jordan. It was very sad news, actually. It wasn't long ago that we found out that sadly he was quite ill, and it did catch me by surprise. Actually, I think it was it on the Thursday or the Friday? I'm not sure. I
Thursday.
remember it on the Thursday, and it was very somber, very sad, very sobering start to the weekend. And Eddie Jordan for me epitomised what was great about the early F1. You know, taking a risk, taking a risk on a team that had limited to zero money, limited to zero facilities. You know, he had to use a lot of his own capital, find sponsors, find drivers. You know, he went up against the big boys, the Williams of this world, the McLarens of this world, and he made the team a success. And obviously, the team is still on the grid to this day in Aston Martin. So he was a real pioneer, a real bastion for the independent team, and is a real reason why probably a lot of the mechanics, the drivers, and other personnel are still on the grid today. So a fantastic life, a fantastic pundit as well with BBC and Channel 4, and an all-round top bloke.
I like to think that Sky never got him on because they simply wouldn't have been able to afford him with the kind of deal he would have tried to haggle with them.
Yes.
He was truly a pillar of resilience within motorsports, I feel like.
Yeah, no, he was, I think, described as one of the last people, if not the last person, to truly go with that independent team idea and not just take it on and make it work, but, make it work for multiple years. I was talking about Kramer coming into IndyCar the other day and how they struggle as a professional team at the moment to just get their feet under the table, and how other people in that sport can come in for a race or two and then try and build it up for a few years, but then they're gone by the end of the decade, and that's professionals trying it, that's amateurs trying it, and he's somewhere in the middle, I guess. He's kind of like, he was a racer and then he just chanced it and just kept chancing it and somehow just kept making it work. And like you say, he was at a point where third in the Constructors' Championship and only Ferrari and McLaren are ahead of you. That's not too shabby going. And obviously the
Especially
infamous
considering,
98 Grand Prix win at Spa.
yes, I think that was for me one of the greatest F1 moments of all time. A wet race, some very controversial moments in that race as well. If you haven't watched that race, go and watch the highlights. But I haven't
Spoilers.
seen a team principal or a team owner as animated as Eddie Jordan when he's literally dancing up and down the paddock. And I think members of other teams are coming down to congratulate him as well. Probably one of the most, if not the most popular win, I'd say, in F1 history.
It was
I think the
iconic.
closest thing we've had to it since, or in most recent times, was when Kevin Magnussen got pole in Brazil for Haas. Is kind of the closest thing we've had to it in terms of everyone else genuinely doesn't mind and is quite happy for them because why wouldn't you be in that circumstance? You've played an absolute blinder, and that should be celebrated. And that's the kind of thing that F1 is all about. And he was determined to make that the case every single time, and it took him a bit of a while to get there. But it's the same thing why we love Williams so much, and we persevere with them to this day, is because of the history and the story there, and how long it took Frank Williams to get that team to place that he brought it with the multiple championships for both drivers and constructors. And I don't want to say we won't see it again, but it's going to be a while before someone even attempts it, I think. Jacob, Öykü, I think it might have to be us.
Yes. Well, I've got a tenner, so if you've got 20 quid between you, I think we've got about enough. But yeah, it was very brave what he did, very of its time. Will it happen again? I don't want to say no, but I've got my reservations on that. But for me, one of the biggest things that he did was obviously bring Michael Schumacher into the sport. He was only with Jordan for one race. He was that good in the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix. So again, as I said a couple of minutes ago, without Eddie Jordan, a lot of these talents, a lot of these personnel on the grid we wouldn't have seen. So just I don't think I've got enough confidence to give him. He's just an absolutely all-round fantastic top bloke.
And I feel like he's not getting enough credit, especially people who has recently started watching the sports, because I think a lot of people didn't really know who he was until the day he passed away. They didn't know that he was the mastermind behind lots of great motorsports moments and so many of the names on the grid today as well, as you said, Jacob.
I think maybe he hasn't been in the spotlight so much. Thiemo, I know you watch more of the Channel 4 highlights over here in the UK than I do. Did he appear in recent years? I'm not sure if he has appeared in recent years on that.
I know he usually turned up for Monaco at the very least. He couldn't resist Monaco. And sometimes there would be a feature where he would be off elsewhere doing something. He wouldn't actually be wherever the hell they were. But I think that was probably definitely last year, it was due to the cancer. And prior to that, I'm not 100% sure, possibly just the fact that he's still making deals left, right, and centre in other businesses and charity work, and just being with his family in South Africa a lot of the time. I think that it is a shame that there's not more people aware of him, like you say, especially when, if you've ever heard him speak, you can't then unhear him, and you'll always recognise that very distinctive voice from the get go. And it's a shame that a lot of people miss out on that, and they'd have to go back. And a lot of people won't, unfortunately. But for people that are in the know and they're on this crossover period, or they're new like you, Öykü, but you have that extra bit of interest to want to go back, you don't need much to go back and listen to people like him or Murray Walker. You go, oh yeah, you get one clip, and then you're going to find yourself down a rabbit hole immediately, and you are not having any regrets about it.
You could spend hours listening to Eddie Jordan. I'm sure I used to love his punditry on BBC back in the day. That was always fantastic. A real character on the screen.
I do think it's fitting as well that his last big deal was getting Adrian Newey to essentially go to his team and bring everything a bit full circle on that respect. And the even bigger full circle thing for me, which also acts as a bit of a segue, is the fact that he was always this big advocate for giving drivers a fair shot and for getting them into F1. So even though Michael Schumacher got stolen away from him by a certain Flavio Briatore pretty much immediately, he was still going to probably give him the whole season or the rest of that season rather, to get into F1 and really find his footing. Just didn't realise he would find it that quickly, which is why it is quite disappointing to see how Red Bull have handled Liam Lawson. I'm not going to come to you, Jacob, because while everyone else doesn't know how much we've been talking this one to death, we've not talked to you about it just yet, Öykü. So what are your thoughts on this whole opinion? On this whole situation? It's so infuriating I can't even talk properly.
I called it. I manifested it on a pop
We
chat
got you to blame.
And you called me you're even harsher than Helmut Marko, but look how the tables have turned.
I don't think that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, no, it's just really sad. Just 2 races is crazy. You might as well just do it after free practice 1 then. What's the point of...
And give them ideas for them. Stop doing this.
They might have got to binned him off after the launch show.
So many memes regarding the situation, and I think the one that made me chuckle the most, one of them was poor editors having to edit the intro again just after 2 races.
Oh,
Yeah, my heart sank for them. And another one was that there was a headline, I think, in New Zealand newspapers, and they said
hmm.
Red Bull clips your wings.
I did see
That's
that. I did
really
like that
good
quite a bit.
because Red Bull do be clipping your wings for sure. We've seen so many examples of it in the past, and now it's happened to Liam Lawson. And I think he was quite a good driver as well. I really liked him in that second Red Bull seat as an idea. If we had the time to see what he could be able to do, potentially, it could have been really good. I don't know if Yuki's going to be any better than him.
Well, this is the thing, right?
Well, we'll find
I'm going to
out.
try and briefly surmise the Christ knows how many hours of conversation Jacob and I have had when you put everything together over the last couple of weeks or so. But it's the third wave of Red Bull doing this with their junior drivers. If you go back to when they first entered the sport, and they appear to have learned the square root of sod all when it comes to handling this sort of thing. If you want to have a driver succeed and you want to bring someone from your junior team into your senior team, you do actually have to develop them in the same way that Mercedes have developed Kimi Antonelli and all the seat time that they've given him outside of the cost cap allocation, which you are more than entitled to do. The Red Bull is a very different car to the Racing Bull, and switching things up that quickly is not going to be smooth. Look at Carlos Sainz at Williams. Look at Hulkenberg in the Sauber. Look at all the other rookies coming from F2 and their respective places into F1. It's going to take a little bit of time. And if we're judging everyone on mixed results, we're taking out about half of the field from the first 2 races. I don't see that happening. And again, not a dare. So I
Don't
do
give them
wonder.
ideas.
No, I know. I'm going to blame Öykü for that one as well. She's clearly getting to me on that one. And as for Yuki, again, maybe I'll be wrong here, but I like you. I don't see him doing any better, especially from the get-go. And you go, well, he's what does he have to do? Does he have to? What is acceptable in Japan? Does he have? Can he just get points and that be enough? Does he have to be in the top 5? Does he have to get a podium? Does he have to win the whole thing? What is acceptable? Otherwise, what's the point in putting him there? Because you then think you've kind of got to treat him the same way you've just treated Lawson, but even worse because he's got the 4 years of experience consistently at your junior team in the first place. So if he doesn't at least get P10, and that is a weird bare minimum here, then, well, I guess Hadjar's going in for Bahrain, surely.
And then I'm going in for Spain, and
By that
Thiemo,
point,
you're
then
going
I've
in
run
for
out of people and
Monaco.
we're going to have a go ourselves,
Öykü,
yeah.
you're going in for Silverstone. I think that's the rota. But it might change.
Öykü's going to
Keep it
accidentally make
updated.
history here and become the first female F1 driver since Susie Wolff because it's just how this is all happening and we can't rule it out. Um, Absolutely mad. But yeah, we could go around in circles on that one. So I will just see if you two have any other final thoughts on Australia and China so far. There's a lot that's happened. We've had disqualifications, we've had rain, we've had Hamilton winning a sprint race with Ferrari in less than his second Grand Prix start because of how weird these things are.
Yeah.
Williams, more points already than last year. Same for Sauber.
It
Any
feels
way
like
you
we've
want to
had
comment?
10. It feels like we've already had 10 races. For those who don't know, I normally go a bit cold turkey over the winter and try to stay away from all F1 content possible. I was looking forward to this season, and as we saw last season, it can change. I'm not saying this season's over, but I'm already slightly tired, and I think the Lawson thing and Jack Doohan's already under pressure. These things are already grating on me a little bit. It's been a lot packed in, a lot to take on board. I think that the Chinese Grand Prix itself was an absolute snorefest. It's one of the worst Grand Prix I've seen in many a year. The Australian Grand Prix, for all its chaos, was frustrating. It was a safety car heavy race, safety car restarts followed by another crash. It really lacked flow, although it was nice to see, obviously, Williams and Haas and Stake Sauber up there in the points, which is always very nice. But yeah, I feel like a lot has gone on. We haven't achieved very much. I can't wait for this weekend to be a break, and I can't believe I'm saying that 2 races in. And for me, the best part of the season so far, weirdly, has been a sprint, which Thiemo, I'm sure
You would not
you
have. I
definitely
would not have
know.
thought you'd be saying that anytime soon.
I can't stand. Yes, it wasn't again action packed, and I think that at this point sprints can never be rectified or saved. But you had a certain Lewis Hamilton coming to the fore in a red car with his nice yellow helmet. It just felt right. And Timo, I know you watched it and you've done some crazy things these past 2 weeks, getting up all hours under the sun. I've been a little bit more conservative, but I woke up with a smile on my face on a Saturday morning, which is very rare because, again, I don't like sprint races. That was, for me, a nice touch. But yeah, the season's been very hit or miss so far, and I'm ready for this break.
I think a lot of people said Australia as an opening race was a really good comeback. I thought that as well. But I think a lot of people tend to mistake chaos for good racing because Australia,
Exactly.
it wasn't that good because we haven't really seen racing, did we? It was chaos and we liked it and we love it, me personally, but then we didn't even race. And in China, we raced even less and I didn't even know that was possible.
I'm not convinced China even happened. There was so little racing.
It is a weird one, isn't it? Because I still stand by the fact that Australia should be the season opener
Oh, I
for
100%
every
agree with
season
that.
moving forward. But like you say, we're used to these sorts of crazy races. Maybe halfway through a season or towards the end of a season, you go for Spa or Budapest or Vegas or
Or
somewhere like
Brazil.
that, you know? Yeah, Brazil, exactly. I don't think we've ever had that chaotic a start to a season because you look at 21 as a great season opener, but that was just really close combat wheel to wheel the whole time. Same for 2022. And you
Fantastic
go for
races.
some other years and you have 2014 with the new regulations and you look at that and have some DNFs, but you have a fun podium because you get both McLarens up there, and considering what they were then going to go on and do for the rest of the season and beyond was unthinkable. And then obviously you have the perfect opening to a season, which is 2009, and you go, that is a pretty high bar to get over, and I don't expect us to have that again. But this as a season opener just falls so far below that, like you say, don't mistake chaos for good racing. It's fun to see the drivers being tested with the conditions. You look at the shot where you've got the two McLarens yeeting off the track and Max just doing his thing, and you go, I like that element of it, but we need more of that without the crashing and the stop-starting nature of it. And we never really got going in that instance, and it was an interesting tribute to Melbourne 2023.
Maybe slightly better than that race, but I will say though, as poor as the racing was, it was certainly better than last year's opening race because,
Mm.
for
Definitely.
one, I didn't watch it because I had other plans, and two, Thiemo messaged me and said, "Don't even bother with the 7 minute YouTube highlights. I've erased that race completely from my memory."
I saved you time there. You owe me for that one. Um, we shall
I'll get
move
you.
on though
I'll get you.
because
I'll get you a pint.
Mm.
I can work with that. We'll stick with Australia though because something that did come out of Australia that was pretty good over our winter break for F1, which I'm quite happy about. I've known about it for a while, but never really taken the time to delve into it. Australian supercars. First two rounds were at Sydney Motorsport Park, and the first race they've got lovely extended highlights for free on YouTube. Admittedly, the third and fourth round I think were at Melbourne Park, Albert Park, sorry, on the same weekend as the Australian Grand Prix. Weirdly, haven't been able to find highlights for that just yet. I'll work on it, but drew me in enough to make me want to watch the second race, which was a damn good thing because that was maybe one of the best motorsport races I've seen in quite a while, and I was not expecting to say that about a series that I had not watched before on only the second highlight viewing. I shared it with you two, and I said, even if you can only just watch the last 5-10 minutes of it, I think you'll get why I want to talk about this because here's a series where there's no drivers that I know at all. I'm only familiar with two of the tracks as I now know that they went to Albert Park. And yet I just found myself glued to the screen and going, oh, this is actual box office stuff. And we had one of the best motorsport battles of recent years with Waters and Feeney fighting for the last quarter of the race and then literally drag racing to the line with the driver that you don't think is going to quite be able to make it, making it and just pipping his rival to the line, and you just literally can't get any closer. It's the kind of thing you expect in NASCAR, And even then, it's slightly more expected because it's a more common thing. And I'm just like, I don't know what's going on here, but I love it. What did you two have to think of it?
I'm not sure if we've lucked in and the races are not always that spectacular, but that was absolutely epic, wasn't it? And I think it almost feels to me how you depict motorsports in the movie when you think of motorsports and all the
Hmm.
fantastic films, and maybe not ones that are based on real life, but probably how the F1 movie's going to go
Yeah.
in summer, right? You know, close racing to the finish, photo finish for the win, that sort of thing. And it was a truly fantastic race. Up until about 5-10 minutes before the podcast, I had no idea who Waters and Feeney are, but it's safe to say if they keep this up and the level of competition is always that fierce, then who knows? I may be a fan of them going forward. I thought it was absolutely fantastic racing. I know that Bathurst is a fantastic track, as is Albert Park. I wonder if they race around Phillip Island as well, which is obviously, for those who don't know, the MotoGP track in Australia. A fantastic track. Not exactly sure where it is, but that's also a fantastic track. So there's a few good tracks over in Australia, and if they utilise all those tracks well, I can imagine it being a absolutely fantastic series.
Yep. And I think only paying attention to open wheel racing is something that a lot of motorsports fans are guilty about, me included sometimes. But while we're all busy watching single seaters like Formula One, sometimes two or three, we're slipping on some absolutely insane racing elsewhere. And that race just showed that, especially when I was missing real racing action because of F1. To see that photo finishes and the overtakes, it was just amazing. All these series I feel like deserves way more credit. The talent is insane. A lot of new people that you can get acquainted with. It's just new and exciting.
I think
Totally
it comes
agree.
down to the fear of missing out. You always assume that, oh, this great series on the other side, but because F1's on, you always assume you're going to miss something absolutely fantastic, but it never is the case. So maybe next time I'll try and watch something else, and who knows, the Grand Prix will be absolutely fantastic, and everyone can thank me for it.
Yes,
There's
please
there's
do.
Jacob on at 4 a.m. to watch Australian supercars while everyone else is watching Japan.
Well, I couldn't even get up at 4 a.m. for the F1, so I'm not sure I'll be doing
True,
it for
true.
that. But if it is that good, then who knows? That is a great way to start any morning, I'm sure.
On the flip side of that, there was also the start to the World Rally Championship, which isn't usually my cup of tea, but I was in deep in the winter break, and as I discovered Australian supercars, I thought, well, I might as well give this another go and let's see what's going on here. And it's still not necessarily my cup of tea, but I did find myself drawn back a little bit into it, which is a good thing because there was then quite an amusing development in the battle between everyone, it would seem, and Mohammed Ben Sulayem, which is that he decided that F1 clearly wasn't a big enough venue to go against drivers for swearing, as we've clearly solved every other issue in the world, and decided to take it to the WRC drivers who had a thing or two of their own to say, or rather not say, in response to it, which I did quite love. So basically, for those who don't know, there's a driver in WRC, Adrian Formeau, and he was given a €10,000 fine and a subsequent suspended €20,000 fine because he was swearing, I think, in an interview somewhere. And again, for F1, you wouldn't even bat an eyelid at a fine like that. Easy for me to say. But WRC, I don't know enough about it, but I don't think there's enough money in there for that to be just something you can brush off pretty easily. So it's pretty serious. And so, in response, the WRC drivers decided to either remain silent or speak only in their native language during the stage and television interviews in Kenya at the last round of the championship. I found that quite amusing because there's obviously nothing that anyone could do about it. They're not legally obliged to answer questions. They don't have to do anything. It reminded me of Verstappen last year, I think, when he had a similar response when MBS first started this nonsense. And Formo then did give a brief interview following one of the stage rounds. He was asked, "Oh, this was a great stage for you. Da 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 da. How did you find everything out there?" And just had the most left field answer of "Kuna Matata," and then just drove off,
I
which
love
you
it.
just quite love. And it also meant that for the first time in my history, at least, I don't know about you two, but resulted in hearing Welsh in a motorsport interview as the language of answer due to Elfyn Evans decided to answer some interview questions in Welsh, and I was going, I don't think I've heard that before. I mean, again, Jacob, you and I have been watching motorsport for a long time. I don't think I've heard Welsh once. um, for probably obvious reasons, but between that and Hakuna
No,
Matata, I'm becoming a WRC fan for all the probably wrong reasons. Although WRC Kenya did look like a lot of fun, even though it was tough as hell.
I do need to start, as I say, branching out into other motorsports. But all I can say for the time being is, if I was involved with the WRC, I probably would have been banned a long time ago, considering the amount of times I've let a little expletive slip here and there. But it sounds absolutely crazy, doesn't it? I guess it's has created publicity. You know, being honest, I'm not a fan. I haven't watched too much of it, but I have found myself checking out a few highlights packages here or there, clicking on some content, which I'm sure all helps the algorithms and so on. But yeah, it's absolutely crazy what's going on. Obviously, there's this wider picture of the FIA president just doing and saying what he feels like, and just running the place how he shouldn't. I don't think so. Yeah, pretty mad.
I think it's such a witty way to make a stance, not talking or talking in your native language. Also, I feel like, especially when you're racing, let alone the interviews, maybe you can control the language that you use while giving the interviews, but when you're in the car, the adrenaline is just too high, and you wouldn't even be thinking about the words that you're picking. They just come out of your mouth. Even I sometimes curse when I'm watching the F1 races. It's
Even
like
Well,
you.
it's
I
reflex.
normally curse, but just based on how bad it is, not because I'm excited.
Well, I think about the times I've gone go-karting just for a bit of fun, and the competitive nature just takes over, and before you know it, you are making Gordon Ramsay look like an innocent choir boy with the amount of swearing that you're doing, and you're thinking, yeah, you can't really police this because it's just instinct and nature taking its course. It's just how you react, and I wish I could say fudge a lot more, but I'm not going to, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. So we do have to know what I'm going to say. You just get on with it. I don't think that's where we can blame the STEM route for kids going wrong in life is because they've seen a couple of drivers on TV swearing a couple of times. I don't think if we remove that, all of life's issues later on for people are going to be solved and everyone's going to be a perfect model citizen.
I honestly think that the more it continues, I think that it will just end up being, well, it won't be policed. I think that obviously drivers in the heat of the moment aren't going to think about that ban. They're going to think about obviously letting a little swear word slip. So I think that down the line it'll all be conveniently forgotten about, and drivers will go on how they've been doing. But again, it's bleeped out. You don't hear the words. You know,
Hmm.
if they are swearing, it's probably because it's been an exhilarating moment, and you're more focusing on watching that crash, that save, that overtake than listening to what they may have said on a on the team radio, which again, absolutely ridiculous. And it's a bit ironic, really, because isn't Mohammed Ben Salem, hasn't he raced motor cars before? Hasn't he raced cars before?
He's
I'm sure he
tried.
has.
Oh yeah, I mean, he does well off road. I was immediately flashback to his single seater attempt and then not making it, kind of making it not
I'm
even as
sure we've
far as
got a
Nikita Mazepin did in Bahrain. But in terms of off road capabilities, he's somehow very capable there. But everything else, not so much.
Mm, it's a
And
curious one. It's a really curious one, isn't it?
there are rumors that Susie Wolf might run for FIA president. I would love to see
I'd be
that.
up for that. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
be very much up for that.
The really annoying thing for me is, as you just touched on there, Timo, is the fact that we've got so many bigger problems within motorsport itself that the FIA can dictate. Well, there's always this crossover between, let's go back to Formula One for an example, the FOM versus the FIA. There are things that the FIA can't control, for example, circuit contracts. When it comes to Silverstone, for example, getting a 10-year deal, that's F1, that's not the FIA dictated. But what they can do is they can promote these campaigns, as we've seen, getting women into motorsport. We've seen it with road safety as well. And I think this time next year, we may see the FIA with a little bit more egg on their face, because from what I've been reading, one of the bigger problems coming up may be the 2026 F1 rules. And I'm not going to get all negative and go off on a tangent now, but I think swearing is very much the least of their problem, and certainly as the viewership, our problem as well. So just forget about it, really.
A couple of other series I wanted to touch on briefly is weirdly, NASCAR, just because second year watching it for me consistently. I don't know about you two, but it's just fun, easy watching, and a little bit like the Australian Supercars. Don't have to get super invested. Can just take it or leave it some weekends, or just play catch up when you've missed a few rounds or whatever. And it's been quite entertaining, and a little bit like the Australian Supercars, we've had a couple of almost photo finishes, which is again just refreshing. You need it when we have the chaos that we're dealing with in F1 the rest of the time. And Phoenix produced a couple of really great races in both categories lately. And Lawson, I'm sure, is a name that both of you are somewhat familiar with in terms of he just goes and wins stuff. And there was a round Homestead Miami, which is the Formula E going next month. And the fun thing with NASCAR as well is that you can race in all three categories if you really want to. There's weirdly nothing to stop you from doing that. So if you want to be in the Truck Series and then the Xfinity Series and then the actual NASCAR Cup Series, all in one weekend, you can. And that's exactly what Kyle Larson did last weekend. And he got 2 of the 3 wins across the 3 categories, which in itself is not too shabby. Even better is the fact that in the Truck Series, he had a bit of contact in the final stage of the first race, drifted, did a whole 360, and then kept going, didn't lose any positions, and then went on to win the race. That's not too bad going, and kind of shows you the driver that he is there. And I just thought that is worth a mention. As is weirdly something I've started measuring now, which is, again, you're both familiar, and everyone listening will be familiar with, in IndyCar and NASCAR, you have the Grand Marshal at the start of every race, says the infamous line of drivers, start your engines. And I've started rating to see who's good at that and who isn't, because sometimes you get some real corkers, and other times you get some really dull ones and you wonder, do you even want to be here? And I don't know who Ken Spell is, I cannot remember, but he has the best one so far. I think an older chap, very much in the spirit of the game, proper job of it. Different weekend, Morgan Freeman was there, and I'm thinking, well, we're in for a treat here. Man, he did not want to be there. Morgan, that voice, the acting prowess that he has, it was the most underwhelming driver start your engines you'd ever had. You'd think someone had just told him that his whole family had been murdered. He was just not interested at all from the sounds of it, and I was bitterly disappointed.
Now I just want to watch a compilation of drivers start your engines clips.
Maybe that's my new content idea.
Have you got any links to send over, Thiemo? That sounds like a fun watch.
I'll have to make them first, I think, unfortunately, and then I'll be able to send it over later. But yeah, it's again, you take the enjoyment where you can, and for me, that's weirdly where it is with NASCAR. Nothing against the race. The race is also pretty good, but I've now got my own little game to go with it. In Japan, meanwhile, Super Formula has been going on. It started last weekend, I think. I was just kind of lucky enough to stumble across that the other day. And as I messaged you in Australia, Jacob, Umo Iwasa is still alive, and he is actually competing in the championship this year, and he's leading the championship, in fact, after the first 2 rounds in Suzuka. Didn't win either of the races, but he did have a jolly good go at leading both of them, and finished second and third ultimately. Other names that you both will probably know that are also in this series and answer a couple of questions are Kamui Kobayashi, yes, that one. Zach O'Sullivan, that's where he's turned up. Sasha Fenestraz, I did wonder after Formula E and his disappearance. And Juju Noda, who is someone definitely worth keeping an eye on for the next few years. And again, just really nice close racing. And with Suzuka being the next one up on Formula One's calendar for this year, nice way to get ready for that and potentially, I don't want to say it, but maybe more enjoyable than what we're going to get, depending on if the chaos continues. But I thought just to answer a few questions that I know you had, Jacob, about a couple of drivers and where the hell they've gone, I thought I'd save you the bother of falling down those rabbit holes.
We're always wondering, aren't we, where drivers are going to end up? And I don't know how today's news has affected my Yuki Tsunoda prediction to open his restaurant in Las Vegas. But you never know. The way Red Bull are going at the moment, it could be by the summer break. Super Formula is again a series I've neglected a little bit, and I don't know. Is it? I certainly don't think it's on UK television. Is it one that's streamed on YouTube, Thiemo?
I found the 5-minute highlight videos on YouTube, and that was after the weekend had happened, so I hadn't realised it had started. I thought I was doing quite a good job of keeping track of everything, and then I realised about 5 championships had started without me realising. I go, oh, never mind, I'll try again next year. So I think for a lot of these things, as you were saying earlier, if you were so stuck with the primary championship that we want to keep an eye on the most, that we miss out unintentionally on other things going on. And there's some really great racing in there. And sometimes, you're just going to have to deal with the 5-10 minute highlight packages and go, if this was in a time zone that I would consider getting up for, then maybe. I mean, you have a better chance of it because you're slightly closer to Japan than we are, but I still don't think you're necessarily waking up for Super Formula just yet. But it's nice to have that a little bit of FOMO, because you think, I would maybe do that if I didn't have anything else going on for this weekend and I happen to wake up early. Why not? I know I'm going to have some non-committed, quite a bit of fun. It's kind of, we always say, Jacob, don't we, that Formula One is a bit like a marriage, and we're there. We are there for it, for the good times and the bad, and we're really getting tested on that sometimes.
Well, I think
sometimes you can be forgiven for just having a little bit of a look elsewhere and not doing anything. You're just looking.
Well, I think after the start of this season, I think I've got more than one eye elsewhere, and I think we're at the stage of the marriage where we're no longer eating dinner at the same time. We've moved into separate bedrooms because the other one of us is snoring too loudly. So I don't know if the divorce is on the cards yet, but we might go on a little break here or there. It's been a long marriage now, and it's starting to take its toll. I have aged quite a lot actually in the last 2 weeks.
I'm really hoping that all of this gives Öykü the inspiration to make some kind of weird but amusing looking graphic for this episode where Jacob's getting married to an F1 car, or maybe getting divorced. I don't know, something along those lines. There's scope in there.
It's going to be Jacob and F1 trying an open relationship and exploring options.
Let your
that doesn't get
imagination
the viewers
run wild.
coming in. I don't know what will at that point. What else do you want from us?
One thing I want to add about Super Formula is that I think what's weird to me, especially about Super Formula, is there are a lot of good racing drivers there. Like we talked about Australian supercars, and we don't really know who's racing there. But then when you look at Super Formula, a lot of the people that you have seen in other series that are really good, Ivasa is one of them. Jujunoda is amazing. Fenestra's wasn't the worst in his Formula E career as well.
I love how that compliment ladder just really fell apart at the bottom there.
Yeah. Kobayashi again, Sullivan. We had a Turkish racing driver in the series like 2 years ago, I think.
Mm.
There were a lot of good racing drivers, but still, I think Super Formula doesn't really do a PR campaign that good because nobody's talking about it. Nobody's watching it. Never have I seen a single person that says, yes, I'm watching Super Formula actively.
And then she met me. Right, I'm trying to carry this for so many people.
You're the outlier.
Thiemo, you'd watch anything with four
hey,
wheels.
Hey, take that back.
I think there is a market for it there. I think it just needs, again, kind of how like Formula E needs a little bit of a boost on the PR side. Obviously, to more extent, because I think Super Formula is less known. But if you get out a decent highlights package, the drivers, if you've been watching other Formulas, are fairly big names. It wasn't too long ago that Lawson obviously was there. Pierre Gasly, I think, honed his craft after GP2 or before. I can't remember. He might have gone there before F1, and he did very well there. I think even Takuma Sato had a stint there, maybe. So there are big names.
Well was there last year or the year before at some point,
yes,
after his Formula 2 career. I mean, again, he's disappeared again off the face of the earth.
He's completely. I don't actually know where he is. Does anyone know where he is? I actually have no idea.
If you need a backup post, if you need a backup graphic, can you just make a missing post of a table chair and ask if we can find him somewhere, please? But yeah, it's like you say. There's so many good drivers there, and again, it's something where you at least want to try a few things to get your media campaign, get some attention out there. And I suppose I wasn't going to talk about this, but you've inspired me now, Jacob, that Formula E tried this recently, and I know for a fact that you don't know who any of these people are, Jacob. So Öykü, you are our only hope here. If you saw any of this, yes, this whole tests session with quote unquote celebrities. I recognise Draco Malfoy because, of course, I do, but who the hell is everyone else? Because I think Supercar Blondie maybe. But again, I'd have to be told. I wouldn't necessarily, despite working for the company, I don't think I'd necessarily recognise it out in the street. So, who were these celebrities and how were they celebrities? What do they explain all of this to me? I'm an old man.
Who are these people? I think I was the target audience of this whole Evo Sessions
Thank God
thing because
someone was, because I was
all
questioning
the
that a lot.
10 people, I was like, they got really hacker? Like, what do you mean? He's a he's a TikToker, and what he does is he make thirst traps. That's his career. And now he's a racing driver, apparently. And we got Draco Malfoy and Mr. Beast did an accident. Like, the whole thing is just like a fever dream. The
It
son
felt
of
a bit
David
like one.
there. It's just,
As in the Mr. Beast. Sorry, Thiemo. Even I know who Mr. Beast is.
yes.
Am I right in saying, Thiemo, he's a YouTuber that would
I think I
does
can
he
agree
review
to
video
that.
games or something along the lines of that?
Exactly.
Can
I'm
agree
not
to know.
too.
I know. He's not the Marvel character, and I think he's a YouTuber. That's about as far as I can give you.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I'm not searching him up, but obviously, being a school teacher, I do have to sometimes, the kids
Get
do
down
tell
with the
me quite a
kids.
lot of
Yeah.
things. Exactly, yeah, I've got to appear cooler than I actually am sometimes. So that's how I know who Mr. Beast is. But I mean, I'm trying to think, when's it our turn then? Really?
Soon, hopefully. It wasn't a problem with who they invited with me, but it was more like,
That's because you knew who they were.
Exactly. But I was like, why? Why are they there? What are they doing?
You were still questioning this. This is not an Avengers level team. So what are we dealing with here? What's the threat?
Exactly. What's the purpose of all of this? Like chaos. Okay, I love it. But then what happened at the end? We don't know. They didn't even get to race.
There was a person, Jacob, who, for obvious reasons, I didn't recognise and didn't know, and I saw that they formerly had posted something. There was this driver, and Dan ticked him, and I just went, "Why would I even engage? What is there to like about any of this? I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
who this person is. He's a questionable racing driver at best, and the
Exactly.
car is not going to be performing with either of them. What is there to? This is not the way. This is not the way to keep a fan. I tell you that
Well,
now.
if we're being honest, I think we'd rather watch Mr. Beast and all these YouTube celebrities than Dan Tipton, to be honest. So I think actually maybe they're
Again, the
going
bar
down
is
the right
low.
path. Yes. I don't think I can reach it down that low.
Take Limbo up first. Other series worth a quick mention because, like we say, there's so much out there, but I just want to give a quick shout out to some of these, and then you two jump in wherever you want. The Asian Le Mans series obviously happened. I didn't get to watch any of it, unfortunately, but I did get to watch the highlights. Great highlights, but weirdly not in HD. I would have thought that had been a problem they would have solved by now. It's a small series, but it is always pretty good. A bit like WEC, Jacob, and in the European Le Mans series, it does deliver some really nice endurance racing, and I think could benefit from a Road to Le Mans like series for each of them. I don't know if either of you have watched that, telling the story of Michael Fassbender's journey with Porsche as he was joining the European Le Mans series on his way to obviously compete in Le Mans, and it was beautiful. And I think that a small series like that and other series potentially would benefit from that sort of thing. Not necessarily going down the Drive to Survive route of it, where it just becomes more fictitious the longer you watch, but actually just telling a story. Bathurst 12 hours, best racing of the year, honestly, I think still for me so far. Well worth watching the almost hour-long highlights. And that says something, I think, because again, not something where I pay too much attention for, but if you can be that engaged for that long with a series where, again, you don't know anyone, love it.
And you'd
Um,
rather watch that instead of an hour-long Chinese Grand Prix.
yes, happily.
Yeah.
There was the Formula Winter Series, which I think, Jacob, is what you and I want from F1 Academy, which I think in China we got that a bit more than we were potentially used to. I've got to say, okay, well, I'm going to tangent off my own point here to talk to you about this because I think the 2 rounds that you got for your debut as F1 Academy commentator, not too bad, no? I mean, I know there are a lot of safety cars, but I think you looked into that one.
First of all, it went on for longer than expected because the first race we got a lot of
The
safety
chance
cars.
kept going.
Second race we got a lot of formation laps. So I was like, "Oh, you want me to be behind the mic? You
They
want to
want you
hear
there.
more of me?" Yeah, no,
Wait till there's a red flag.
it was such a
2035.
It was nice. It was chaotic. There were a lot of crashes, incidents. It was just really on brand with F1 Academy. It was really good. I wish like it can be better. As you said,
I
Thiemo, Formula
I
Winter
enjoyed
Series,
it.
it's a good example.
Which is high praise from Jacob, by the way, because we again, as we've
Never
established
heard it
earlier on, it
before.
takes a lot of effort to get him to watch something in the first place. Never mind for him to enjoy it.
Yeah, you may never have heard it before me saying that. You may never expect to hear me say it again. But for what it's worth, I didn't watch it live. But for the highlights I did see. I enjoyed it. I think it was good. Maybe
Yeah.
not so clean, but it was certainly an improvement on what I saw last year. Not sure again if it's obviously track specific or
Mhm.
not, but I will give it a go at the next round, which is at Saudi, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, Jeddah.
Yes, weirdly, but
Yeah,
it did all right there
Jeddah.
last year, so it'd be interesting to see. And like you say, a
Yeah.
circuit that won't be dull for you, Öykü, so you're getting thrown in the deep end whether you like it or not. But the Formula Winter Series that also had some incredibly close wheel-to-wheel action, and kind of helped both fans and drivers get to grips with the new status quo for this year. There were a lot of F1 Academy drivers in there, which I quite liked because again, it was just a way to see them get to grips with it. I think Nina Gaiman was there, Lawson was there, Lisa Palmowski was there, amongst others. And I wrote down initially that this is kind of what I wish F1 Academy was, and I think it it's going in that direction. So fingers crossed we'll get a bit of that. We also had the first round of the World Endurance Championship, which I know you will have enjoyed a lot, Jacob. And I was watching a lot of the pre-season amble, and you and I've talked a little bit about this before. I don't know if I've gotten your opinion on this, Öykü, but Alexa there, I think she's really at home there. She does a lot of presenting elsewhere, but she really feels right for WEC and is exactly the kind of presenter that series needs to keep growing. Um, and maybe it's much more general, the kind of presenter as well. We obviously can't just copy paste her into everything, even though she probably wouldn't mind that. But we need that kind of casual but serious and very informative vibe. And I really enjoy that because I think on a lot of the videos you've got her and you've got another guy whose name I can't remember, who's been around the block a few times with the championship, and they really bounce off each other quite nicely. The fun and serious level of it, and I go for what you're saying with other series needing to boost their media presence and get fans engaged. She's key for this, I think.
Yeah, I like her style. I think it's one of the people that I take inspiration from because in Turkey we don't have any other motorsport specific woman commentators.
It's just you now.
It's just me
It's
now.
all on you.
You
No
just look
pressure.
at Lawson and Alexa really stands out to me as well as a presenter. She's really good.
I think the one thing that is frustrating me a little bit about, and it's nothing to do with the series, the racing is still absolutely fantastic. It's the fact that I'm not sure if you know this actually, Thiemo, but in the UK, so I'm sorry, Öykü, for the time being, but it has moved to TNT Sports, so and away from Autosport, sorry, Eurosport, which is a bit annoying because I actually don't have TNT, so it's an excuse for me to buy it and spend even more money on sports subscriptions. But yeah, I didn't actually watch the first round, sadly, because I was expecting to watch it and then thought, oh, it's not on the side I'm used to it being on. So, damn.
That is frustrating. And again, another topic for another day, I think, in terms of how best to watch all of motorsport when you actually want to watch some of it live and it isn't all on at the same time for a change. But again, I won't tread into that particular trap just at this moment. World Rallycross, the FIA stepped in to save that series, which is an interesting move because it's, I think, worth saving or at least giving the chance to find its feet one more time before it maybe falls over for a while because it really needs to sort itself out. And this is a very convenient segue from Alexa to here because I think you need someone like her to come in as a presenter. You need that kind of a breath of fresh air into it. It needs a lot of work, I think, and I'll be curious to see what happens over the course of this year. I know I watched a round of it, courtesy of Clara Anderson, a couple of seasons ago, free access, and enjoyed it, but not enough to keep me there. And I don't know if it's because I was just, I won't say the phrase I was going to say there, but knee deep in nitrocross at that point and was really loving that. There's someone guessed which phrase I was going to go with there. And
Be careful, you might get fined.
I know. I'm thinking of
You
my
never know
career
who's
in the FIA
listening.
here. And I feel like they'd be worth a combination of the two somehow, but I just don't see it happening. And you need to see some to nitrocross with the logic seriousness of World Rallycross, I think. And I'll be interested to see how that all pans out. But I like that the FIA has done something here where they've stepped in to give it a chance one more time. And obviously, Öykü with the round in Istanbul later in this year, you're probably quite happy about that as well.
Yeah, I'll be having a pop chat meeting in Istanbul then.
I'm game.
Yeah. And like last season, it made a last minute return to the calendar. It wasn't originally there. And normally, when a race gets added too late in the season, you might expect some chaos, empty grandstands. But I think Istanbul Park honestly slayed, and I love it as a track. And I just cannot wait for it to host more international sporting events. And
Such an
WRX
underrated track.
start, definitely.
Is there any rumours over there in Turkey that we did sit over here in England? There was rumours, I think, last year of it returning to the Formula One calendar. Anything more on that? I've not heard anything substantial in the last sort of 6 months or so, but they were rumouring a return to Istanbul Park, certainly for I
Yeah,
think
the
27 or
government
28.
and the FIA, at least Formula One body, they're negotiating. Nothing is certain yet. We're definitely in the talks, but then it's a lot of money that
That's a
we're
lot
not
of
sure
money.
if Turkey will be able to handle. Yeah, we'll see. I really would love to see it return because I really, really love Istanbul Park. I don't want to sound too biased, but I think you
I know
guys agree as well.
It's fair in this case.
it's
Thank
one of
you.
the newer tracks that I absolutely love. Kind of like Malaysia. It's a shame we don't go to Malaysia, but it's
Mm.
Exactly.
it's very much of that new generation, but it's got some old school characteristics to it.
So
Fingers
nothing
crossed that we
certain
get to go
about
back
the
there a
whole.
lot more in the future.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
IndyCar continues to be IndyCar. Alex Palou is just on somehow yet another level compared to everyone else. I mean, I know you saw a bit of it at the weekend, and not just for the unintended fact that we all couldn't see part of it because they had technical issues, but he not only hunted down Pato Award, because I don't know if you saw it, Hopi, but he hunted down Pato Award with an 11-second gap in 6 laps, overtook him, built a 9-second lead gap with about 7 laps to go. And as it turns out, he was sick that weekend, so he wasn't even on top form. That is a bit insane.
It's going to be good racing, I feel like, this season there as well.
It's I made a joke on the Kerbs IndyCar, do go and listen, that it's gonna be this compilation this year of every other team and driver just throwing things at him to try and figure out how the hell do we stop him. So you go like, okay, we've had 2 teammates working together, that didn't work. We had strategy in the first race, that didn't work. Right, what do we do now, guys? Have we got to figure something out? It's just gonna be this comedic reel played over some fast paced music of all these things that aren't working and hoping that at some point we'll find a solution. But I don't know what it's going to take to stop him.
They will
Um,
try to keep him safe the whole season.
I wonder
yeah,
if the stakes will be raised like this year amongst the drivers, and we may see better competition and racing because of it. In the fact that I don't think it was announced the last time we did a PubChat episode, but Cadillac have been formally accepted now onto the grid. It's now happening, the 11th team. I wonder if that will factor into some of the races this year, thinking that, there could be 5 or 6 of those drivers vying for a spot next year on the Formula One grid.
I think a lot of people will be hoping that Alex Palou gets one of those seats just so they send a chance next year. Like, Christ, at least we don't have to deal with him. We can all just rest a bit easy now. Um, Talking of domination, like Dennis Hauger, we were curious about how he would get on in the NXT, and he just dominated the first round as he made the switch over from Formula 2 and was quite a pleasant surprise. On the flip side of that, Sophia Flörsch out after just one round with HMD Motorsports due to budget reasons, which sucks, quite frankly, because she did pretty good and was very good testing. She was about a tenth of a second away from Hauger in testing, and then for her to not get the opportunity, as far as we know, just yet to keep going there, really pair of two halves there for Indy Next.
It's crazy to me that Flörsch keeps having these financial struggles because she's such a mediatic figure as well. She
Mm.
knows how to use her social media, a lot of partnership deals, da da da. And at the end of the day, just after one round, being like, yeah, budget has been cut off. What do you mean? It's just so unfair. I'm really sad for her.
Yeah, ditto on that one. Formula 2, Formula 3, and F1 Academy, they've also happened as well. Josh Dirksen, amusingly, is leading the championship in F2 because we only had the sprint race, at which she masterfully won. We've had typical Formula 3 action as can only be expected at this point. Two different winners down in Australia, and two different winners down in Shanghai for F1 Academy, as we touched on, and rookie and an experienced driver. So we're in for a fun season there, I think. So, favorite moment of the past month? Do we have anything that stands out to us in particular? I'll let you two go first and fight amongst yourselves.
I will. I touched on it a minute or two ago, but for those who have heard me on a few podcasts over the years, for me, my biggest gripe with F1 was always the fact that we never had an 11th team. Now we're going to get it. It may not be Andretti, but it's Cadillac, and if we're being honest, it's still
It's
very
pretty much
much
Andretti.
Andretti, just with a name scratched over the top. So, as me and Thiemo still call Racing Bulls Toro Rosso or Minardi, we're probably still going to call them on future episodes of Pub Chat Andretti. So
Definitely.
it's fantastic that we leaped over these hurdles that the FOM were putting in the way. There's going to be two more spaces on the grid, which means two more drivers. So maybe a bit of better news there for rookies, considering it's not all been good news recently for rookies. And they're going to bring a new name to the grid that we've not seen before. So I can finally stop banging that drum, Thiemo. I know I've been messaging you
It's
for the
been
last 2
literal
years. It has been at least 3 years. I remember when they first announced the project in the back end of 21. So I can finally rest at ease knowing that all hope is not completely lost, although the start of 2025 makes me think otherwise. But for now, my little bit of good news and the best bit of the year so far is we're finally getting the 11th team after literal years.
Thank you.
My favorite moment from the last month was the Ferrari double disqualification because it was a
Well, cheers. I'm
reality
even
check.
wearing a. Don't remind me. I think my hoodie's probably reminding me more,
It,
but yeah.
it was a learning experience. It was just a reminder that we should all keep our hopes really, really low. So it was good. It happened at the start of the season. Now I'm zen. I don't even care. I don't even support a team. I'm just neutral.
I think I've
First,
been
first
Zen
one's free,
since
right?
about 2008.
Yeah.
And say dormant, in hibernation, cryo freeze, in carbonite, inserts
Like,
appropriate reference here.
yeah. And what about you, Thiemo? What was your favorite moment?
The disbelief I just had about 10 seconds ago when you said that was your favorite moment, maybe. Um, is a good question, isn't it? He says somewhat self-congratulating himself on writing the question, which wasn't even that good in the first place, but we'll gloss over that. I'm going to go with the Australian Supercars just because it was just such a genuinely nice surprise. I know. I'm hoping I can still bang on about them enough towards the end of the year or the end of the season. But again, it was just, I can't remember the last time I was that kind of excited for a series that I'd only vaguely heard about thanks to Cameo on Lakeside Drive going on about it occasionally. And a series that I don't know anyone in. Cars, I wasn't even sure what kind of endurance racing we were getting here. And then to get that invested in that edge of seat at the end of what a 30-40 minute YouTube highlight video going.
Well, it was really good.
It's kind of like when you're deep in the F1 off season and you start betting on duck racing. You're there going, I didn't even know that this was a thing that I could do, and I'm just so happy that I've still got cars that I can do this, and I've not gone that far. So that for me was the highlight, I think.
Fair.
No, I can agree with that. It was absolutely fantastic. And Waters and Feeney, we salute you. Household names going forward for sure.
We know them
That
now.
one we definitely have to do on the social media just to see if they'll look at that one. We're going to make them famous in the UK and Turkey. This is where their international stardom starts.
I got it. Better late than never. Now we know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any final notes that you two have before we wrap up this episode of Pub Chat?
All good.
Not much else for me to say really, but can we have a quieter week in F1 so we don't all melt down and become frustrated with everything? So that's all I'm going to say for now.
And I think all I'm going to say in response to that is we know who to blame when everything starts going crazy again. So thank you for that, Jacob.
Well, it could be a variety of people, but maybe it's Flavio Briatore's turn to strike next.
Oh, he's going to have a target on his back one way or the other. I know that much. But anyway, that is all we've got time for on this edition of On the Kerbs Pub Chat. If you'd like us to answer your questions, comment wherever you listen to this, or reach out to us on social media, and we'll do our best to get back to you. We'll be back with another episode talking about something or other to do with motorsport in the not too distant future. In the meantime, If the ladies and gentlemen listening to this would like to consume more of your work, where might they find you? We'll start with you, Öykü.
At Instagram handle Ceylan Öykü, and I think Thiemo will be too kind to leave it in the description as well.
I will be too kind to do that indeed. Jacob, what about yourself?
Well, if you want to find me in person, you'll probably find me curled up on a sofa somewhere watching Australian supercar highlights for the next month. I can't think of anything better to do right now. I'll even have, by the next time we get around to the next episode, a Waters hoodie or some fan merch or something, or maybe I'll create it.
I'd love it if
But,
he's decked out. He's chucked out the Ferrari Puma gear. He's got a
And with
Waters
the background as well.
Yeah, jersey,
I promise
flags,
I'll
the whole deal,
bring
the
a drink.
beanie.
And a can of Foster's, of course, as well. You can find me over on Twitter at JacobPhil18. And as we're in a pub team, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you can follow me as well over on at Long Live the Local Pub over on Instagram, where I tour the UK, 2 pubs a week minimum. Yeah, it's a mini pub crawl I'm embarking on. So
it's a World Endurance Championship style pub crawl. You know, it's not a sprint. You're very much going the distance with this one.
well, you know me, I don't like sprints.
As for myself, you can obviously find me here and on the Kerbs, t.albers-daly, on the Kerbs for everything social media wise, but on the Kerbs for the regular interviews, which there will be more of those coming in the not too distant, as well as on the Kerbs IndyCar, the latest edition in the On the Kerbs Empire. And that's all available wherever you listen to this. You just need to scroll back and find it. And as for the two, all of the information for them will be in the description of this episode. If you'd like more from this podcast, obviously, as I say, older episodes can be found wherever you're listening to this, so do make sure you've liked and subscribed so you don't miss any future installments. In the meantime, I'm Öykü Jacob. Pleasure as always. We shall go for another drink soon, I am sure. Maybe even alcoholic, and maybe even real this time, Jacob. Thank you very much for listening in the meantime. Goodbye.